banks to start easing monetary policy by Q1 to Q2. So for portfolio managers now, we've already seen that pattern in the last 1 or 2 months. The yield on the 20-year benchmark bond, it has declined by over 100 basis points. And we expect that to continue, at least in the short to medium term.
I was coming to that because now the central bank governor is looking at the lower double digit.
Correct.
Or the higher end of the single digit. That's a very nice way to put it, between 7 and 9%, which was the previous forecast.
Yeah.
Or if we trend from 14, perhaps we're looking at 12 sometime in 2018.
Are you talking about the benchmark interest rates?
No, inflation.
Inflation, okay.
Yes. If that is the case, how quickly do you think the yield curve will be for short-term fixed income when this is beginning to look like the policy fiscal authorities are looking at single digit? That's what the president says he would like to see.
Correct.
And the central bank seems to be coming close to the president, to the fiscal authority when it comes to that. If that becomes the inflationary environment outlook for 2018,
correct,
what happens? Are we expecting a bit of a sell-off? Increased sell-off in short-term fixed income, and folks will put more money in long term because they think central bank, when they begin to chop off rates, I wouldn't want to be in the way by then.
Well, the interesting thing about the bond market is when interest rate is declining, if you had locked in a maturity before the rally starts,
before the move,
you're gonna be in the money. You're gonna have a positive return. It's be positive on your.
Is that
portfolio.
what guys are doing now?
But that's exactly what is happening now. That's why we've been seeing lots of positioning at the longer end of both the T-bills curve as well as the bond curve. If you remember, a little like 2 to 3 months back, the stop rates at the stop rates for 360-day T-bills used to be around 18.6%. Now it is below 17.5% because investors are anticipating the monetary authority to start easing monetary policy in the future. However, going back to the discourse on inflation rates, we are a bit more conservative than the central bank. If as you mentioned, their target is between 7 to 9% in 2018. If that is in fact their target,
that's the high end of single digits,
or
the low end of the double digits.
We are more tilted towards the low end of the double digits, right?
From 14 to.
We are currently at 15.9%. We are thinking that by the time the year runs out, we'll be around 15.3 to 15.5%. But in 2018, we are looking at between 12% and 13% for the headline inflation rates. Yeah. But despite that, we should think that is still very bullish for the fixed income markets because the central bank could still be able to reduce the benchmark interest rate by between 100 to 200 basis points before the year runs out.
So from 14 to about 12?
To about 12%, that's our forecast.
So for 2018, you're looking at, you folks at AfroInvest thinking we will be able to do 200 basis point cuts for the whole year?
Possibly. If we see inflation rates trending as low as 12%, we should see a 200 basis points cuts, probably.
So if we see inflation at 14%, where do you think the anchor ratio would likely be?
Maybe another 100 basis points cuts, depending on two other factors. Number one, the developments in the crude oil markets. That's very important. We have seen a bullish trend in the markets over the past a month or two. But the reality is that the market is very cyclical, it's very volatile. So the tide may turn anytime. Although the consensus forecast by most analysts seems to be in the range of $50 per barrel to $55 per barrel. So that's very comfortable if you compare it to the benchmark that we set for the 2018 budget. But if we see a significant drawdown in the crude oil markets, that might alter the easing path by the monetary policy.
Okay, let's move on, Omotola. We've seen our debt basket.
Correct.
So we've got the regular Naira bond, we've got the Euro bond, we've added Sukuk, we've added the monthly savings bond. Now we want to add the green bond. Going green is the way to go anywhere in the world. So I got a little bit of a green shirt here. You got one. So I got one green here. Do you think when President Buhari comes to the stock exchange in December,
correct,
or do you think he should come to the stock exchange to float this? That's a direct question. Do you think it's the right place to float it? Maybe. Not within the villa.
Definitely. That should be in
the market,
in the global market,
where the buyers will be,
because it's a foreign currency bond. it might likely be floated, it might likely be issued in a foreign capital market, but we might see a listing on the FMDQ OTC platform as well as the NSA to enable domestic investors to also trade the instruments.
So if President Buhari brings the green bond finally to the market and rings the closing bell, the stock exchange, how do you think investors should position for going green?
Well, like you mentioned, going green seems to be the new trend in the global economy because of the threats of global warming as well as climate change. We have seen policymakers globally responding to this by different measures. Earlier this year or last year, we saw the Paris climate change arrangements, and building up from that, the federal government is also planning to issue a green bond to invest in renewable energy sources, as well as afforestation. So
if this go in, sorry to cut it, we've got a very short time. If this go in as technically an energy bond,
it's going to be two. It will be going into renewable energy sources, and second, it will be going towards afforestation, because we're having a deforestation problem, particularly in the Lake Chad region, in the northeastern part of the country. So it will be going towards these two projects. But because of the very small volume of issuance, they're looking at between $60 million to $70 million. We think it will be a very successful bond issuance.
So $60–70 million is a piece of cake if you have $34 billion in FX reserves. Folks might just pick that up. So it looks like President Buhari had his green bond already done for him.
I guess so.
Maybe the day he comes to the exchange, he'll be wearing green.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to find out. That's talking about the president's dress code for that day. If I have an opportunity, I'll put on a green as well.
I look forward to that.
But it's December. It's going to be next month, so we have enough time to look at our wardrobes.
Correct.
Do have a great day and a nice week ahead. Omotola Bimbola is one of the investment analysts at Afrinvest. That's going green. Let's keep it at the marketplace, shall we, when we return after the break. 2 minutes.